What's up, everybody? This is Yogi Chris, PhD, founder of Ninth Limb Yoga and captain of IMC Nation, living here in Campbell, California at Base One Temple. Go to imcbase1.com to check out Base One. And you can go to ninthlimb.com to check out all my yoga stuff. This next episode is really nostalgic for me. It's one of the last recycled episodes I'll give you from Science of Peace podcast. It was the second most popular episode on the whole show, right behind Subconscious Communication, which was like the best episode of all time for like all my podcasts. So this outcome independence and unbound abundance episode is, again, one of those first episodes I did with Bryan Casella. And again, it was selling a product. He likes to do episodes when you sell something. And so it's really airtight. This is a really solid episode. It's from like 4 years ago. It gives a lot of his mindset. I'm asking him questions. And so you get Bryan's business mindset that is, now we can see 4 years later, results in a lot of success. He's a very successful guy. And, he's still highly, ranking in IMC Nation and highly involved. And so you get kind of this time capsule of me and him and our relationship. I lived with him on and off for about 9 months throughout the years ago. And, so we got to exchange a lot of notes and ideas and whatever. And so the podcast comes across real naturally. And I hope you enjoy. If you hear me refer to Science of Peace throughout the episode, it's because it's from that podcast. But this is Enlightened Masculinity podcast. If you like it, definitely leave a review and let me know that you like that I recycled this episode. Welcome, everyone, to this very special live broadcast. I'm here with my brother, Bryan Casella, who's a real estate extraordinaire and sales monster, just a titan of communication and persuasion, but in a very ethical sense. Very, very ethical man. I've learned a lot of my sales language from him, and I'm very happy to be talking with him. This topic is called Outcome Independence, and just a little subtitle I liked was An Abundance Mentality with Abundance, which would be a good name. That's a kind of catchy phrase. So, as we're going into the new year, I have a level of enthusiasm it's infectious in all areas of my life. It feels like electricity inside of me. And I'm joining this electrical feeling with a sense of ease and like relaxing into it. Like I don't need to get all wired up. I don't need to get tense. I don't need my adrenaline kicking in. And that's fine if it does. But it seems like the real potency is approaching excitement from a calm, from like a certainty. Like if you knew you were going to win, you wouldn't stress about it. So I'm not stressing about it, but I'm still pushing forward. And so I love talking with Bryan because he's always got his energy is, it motivates me. I get motivated. I always do some great business right after talking with Bryan. So I hand it over to him. He was talking about, we were just talking before the broadcast about new territories going into 2019. Wow, 2017. Going into 2019. And we see the enthusiasm of some other people maybe waning. And, but not you, you're kicking it up all 12 cylinders like a Lamborghini. So, I'm introducing you to my audience and maybe a quick intro about you and what are some of these new areas that you're exploring for 2019.
Sure, man. Thank you for having me. It's not every day we get to be on a live Facebook and Zoom call with a doctor, PhD. So this is awesome. And before we get into that, what you mentioned, bro, what popped up in my mind about, approaching the new year and the excitement from a position of calm and certainty, immediately what came into my mind, and this is how I process it, is cause and effect, right? The majority of the population is waiting for me or you or some other outside stimuli to get them fired up. And they're like, you know what? They're right. Okay, cool. I'm going to ramp up. I'm going to set my goals. And now their adrenaline's going, the excitement's going, and now their emotions got stimulated. The approach that you just described, having that certainty and calm, and we can say almost softness going into it, is coming from the cost point because we know what we're going to do. And we're already going in knowing what the end result is that we want, and we know we're going to get it. And that's the difference. And I think a lot of people enter any type of change, whether it's 2019 or making a personal decision, from that wrong side of the pole. And if we merely switched it from effect to cause, we really would be a lot more consistent, a lot more driven, and a lot more powerful in general. And that's really what will cause you to now pierce. I call it almost like Moses parting the Red Sea. It's like, I'm going to get there no matter what, whatever obstacle stands in my way, I'm just going to create a path. And that's kind of how I see it, right? So I'm really glad you brought that up, dude, because it allowed me to kind of see that and discuss that. Now, as far as new territories, man, where do I begin? one of the new uncharted territories for me is to break out of the space that I'm in, much more so than I already have in regards to, the real estate and the sales field. And I've already made some connections and started to bark up that tree, so to speak, in regards to, traveling and speaking more. I'm in the process right now of booking another gig, which would be my third one that I'm booking for this year so far. And I've already booked 5 or 6 previously in the last month or two. And that's really an uncharted territory for me in the sense of I am really seeing myself getting on almost like a world stage type of platform, right? Because I'm speaking and this and that. I'm talking like a TED Talk or something big where there's thousands of people at the event. It's streamed, it's put up on YouTube, and hundreds of thousands and millions of people see it. That's what I consider at this moment that uncharted territory that I'm kind of keeping my sights on, because I know that's the next level. Outside of that, and then I'll pass it back to you, I've always had it in the back of my mind to start a bar, right? I've always wanted to do that. And I think 2019 is when I'm really going to start cementing those relationships even more that will open that door and really start to, put this plan on paper and make it something serious, because it's been in there as a seed in my mind for such a long time, and it's been germinating, but now is really the time to water it, let it grow. And as you said earlier, it's time for it to blossom a little bit,
Yeah. And, I want to pick your brain a little bit, because we had a comment on the Facebook post about how the title already freed them. He feels better right after reading this title. That's amazing. The title was Outcome Independence, Boundless Abundance with Bryan Casella. And so we both have goals. You got some massive goals. And is outcome independence, which is like a sales idea somewhere, is that only in the context of like this immediate next action, this next sale? Like I don't need this person to do business with, or I don't need this object, but that you have a goal in mind. So where does the relentless pursuit of and persistence towards what you desire, how does that jive with the concept of independence of outcome? Or are those contradictory, or clarify something for me, please?
That's a great question, Chris. And I think a lot of people, and I get that question frequently as well, oh man, I'm going after my first sale, or I'm doing, I'm talking to this one girl I really want. How do I detach from this? How do I not come off as needy? And we hear it all the time in my industry too. People coin it as, they call it commission breath, meaning you're talking to somebody and they can already tell that you're just talking to them because you want the sale and you don't care about anything else and you're not being genuine. Yeah. So we deal with this all the time. This is I guess we can say the moment, I can say like the moment that it clicked for me was one day, and this was during a 4-month segment, man, where I was in the infancy stage, we can call it, of my real estate business, fresh into social dynamics and pick up fresh into real estate. High level of enthusiasm, but already beginning to feel a little bit of the world's pressure and the walls almost closing in on me like, man, I need to make a deal happen. And as I was feeling that pressure, I don't know what it was. I don't know if I was watching a lecture. I don't know if I was reading a book, but the thought just popped into my mind and it said, you're going to be okay. I just heard that. You're going to be okay, right? And I think Arash gave us the line later on, I believe I learned it, was this too shall pass, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but in that moment, dude, it just felt so relevant. And as soon as I heard that, it's like all the tension went away, like, and I was like, man, you're going to be okay. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, that's true. Because if this guy doesn't sign, or I don't get this guy, then I have another opportunity tomorrow. And even if I don't have anybody in the books per se, as far as a lead, tomorrow's a new day. It's a fresh start and there's a new opportunity. So why am I getting so hung up on this one person or this one thing? And I realized, and I'll pass it back to you, Chris, that a lot of the focus that I had going in, which was obviously incorrectly directed, was outside influence, right? Oh man, you need this deal, and all this pressure, like, oh, what happens if you don't sell a house? You're going to have money. All this tension was literally, we can say, injected into me by other people. And when I finally just had that realization, or that moment of, we can say that aha moment, like they say in the business world, it really just removed that tension, man. And it really helped me see the bigger picture. When we get in those moments of desperation, our perspective is so tiny, man. It's just like that moment, that lead, that person, instead of really just zooming out and saying, whoa, okay, there's a whole world here. There's a whole calendar ahead of me. Today isn't the final day. This minute isn't the final minute. I'm going to be okay. right? And I really think that's one of those breakthrough realizations that I had, man, that really helped me.
It sounds like outcome independence. By the way, I also want to say everybody on Instagram, everybody on Facebook, link is in the bio on Instagram, link is on. Come join the Zoom lecture if you want to more readily participate. I mean, you could do it from there. I'll read your comments, but it'll be easier here on Zoom. Yeah, it sounds like the way you just described it, the outcome, like that word is pointing to almost like a time frame. Like if I want the outcome, it's like a time frame and a sense of timelessness to my pursuit. Like if I knew that old like pickup question, like if you could be anything and you knew you would be any, I was a magician, I could snap my fingers and you'd have it. What would you be? Don't say princess. But if in industry, in my yoga, I see the mountainside retreat. I see the oak wood. I see the spaciousness. I see the flat, large beds and the garden in the background, lush, like not a garden doesn't no disservice. The orchard, I see a huge pantry and the smells and the tastes of the food and the cooking that goes on there and kind of the artistic seminars and all the, see, I don't need to bore you with the details. I see those things and I feel them with all my senses, but there's like timelessness to it that, now my next question would be, how to because if it's timeless, I feel the inclination of like, if I knew I was going to succeed, if I knew I was going to win, maybe I don't need to try that hard. Maybe it's going to happen. I don't need to try that hard because I'm assured that it's going to win. And so somehow staying super piercingly vigilant, just like incessantly, just nonstop. And at the same time, it's going to be okay. This too shall pass. The frustration shall pass. You're going to be okay. You're going to make it. And do you see that? And I know you train hundreds of people in your real estate program. Anybody that's following me, the Sales of Real Estate, get on Modern Success with Bryan Casella. And do you see any of that, like if they the sense of like outcome independence that they don't try as hard?
Yeah, that's great insight and a great question, Chris. And a couple things that pop into my mind, right? Number one is my thought process. If I was to put myself back in that position of being new for a second, if I ever even had that hint of I want to relax or I wanted to take time off or take it easy, I immediately would associate that with my goal being in that moment almost like too easy, right? Like I'm not really respecting myself as an individual. It's like I'm playing it safe. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to set my first year goal to make $30,000, right? And even though they may say, oh no, it's a big goal, it really is just like, you know what? I have a blanket of security here. I know I'm going to hit that. I can kind of take it easy. And instead of opening the door to the plane at 30,000 feet and just getting kicked out like, and then taking that leap of faith, we can say, right? That's really what kept me going because I said, you know what? I'm going to shoot, as cliche as it sounds, I'm going to shoot for the fucking stars. Fuck it. Like I'm going to aim high. And even looking at that goal or that initial thought, I was just like, man, even just thinking about it gets me excited. And I want to just get off my couch or wherever I'm at and just get to work because I know it's going to be like climbing Mount Everest. It's going to take mental fortitude, physical fortitude. It's going to take every ounce of me at every moment to get there. So I can't even think about taking time off because as we know, if you're going up to Everest, you have a limited amount of time in that context. If the sun goes down and you're stranded at the top, you're probably going to die like a lot of people do. And there's that healthy, I call it healthy pressure for you to succeed. And I believe those, like that last, we can say 20% of Everest, that's what draws out the greatness, I believe, in human beings, is having that pressure and being in that moment that requires you stepping up. Like I just had an incident yesterday on Sunday. I haven't had time to share it with you, bro, but I think this is a great time.
Yeah.
That demonstrated this. My girl, Loida, and one of my other agents, Kevin, were on a listing appointment, right, to list somebody's home. And long story short, somebody, I guess, who's a neighbor ended up getting involved and was being very disrespectful and almost threatening them, like with physical harm. And I had Kevin, thankfully he stepped up and he kind of remedied the situation by really standing his ground and saying, okay, dude, are you going to do something? And the guy backed off. And I thought that was great. And I told him and I sat him down. I said, those are the moments, man. Those are the moments that require you. Had you been slacking off or taking time off or not taking this seriously, when that moment arrived, you wouldn't have stepped up and you would not have earned your position. And that's why those moments come up, to test you and make you earn your position. And that's the way I see all this. tied to that, I can say is if someone said, well, I may have the inclination to slack off. I say my beingness as BC, that's not even a part of me. I'm a fucking warrior. I show up every single day, and my goal is to say, okay, who's in here in this room, right? You may be my tribesman, but hey, when we go after and we go out on that hunt for that buffalo, I'm going to be the one that gets the kill, because that's the competitive spirit in me as a warrior. And that thought to me is so low frequency, it wouldn't even come on my radar. And my dedication to that, my beingness of that, we can call it warrior spirit or champion or titan, as you said earlier. There's no even hint of that thought or that kind of weakness in it, if that makes sense. So I don't even have to deal with that type of thought frequency, we can say, or that level of thinking. Just like I shared recently, somebody messaged me on Instagram, because you can do those little question games. And they said, how do you stay motivated? I said, I don't deal with motivation. You know, there's levels.
Wait. What's the question game? You mean like the back and forth with messages?
Like, you know, on Instagram, you can, you have a feature now where you can post questions, like as a tag. You know, when you can put location, you can tag somebody.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's a button there that says questions. And when you post it, you can say whatever you want. Hey, ask me a question. So I had a query of like 100 or 200 people that asked me a question, and that was one of them. Right? I'll show you later off the recording how to do it. It's really simple. And they said, well, how do you stay motivated? And I said, I don't deal with that. I'm not on that level. I don't deal with that. There's levels to this game of life, meaning you can ascend past that and not have to deal with motivation. And that question you presented to me, it seems like it's there, right? It's you would deal with it in the beginning stages, sure, but you can ascend past that immediately, and it's not even on your radar anymore. You don't have to deal with it, right? Just like we discuss all the time, the level of concern or worry that people live day to day that we don't deal with anymore because we've ascended to another level of consciousness where that's not even a part of our existence anymore, right? Because it's so small, right? It's like telling the lion to pay attention to the ant. It's like, come on, dude, right?
Yeah. There's some powerful frames and just a powerful state of mind. And, you know, what's so encouraging is how consistent you are about from this vibration, from this state of mind. And, you know, one thing you said that I had to write down, it was so stimulating to my thinking process. It had to do with this idea of narrow vision when you're in desperation. In desperation mode, you don't see, in the mode of desperation, you don't see all the options. And so then the decisions are, dampened. You make good decisions. And in that just kind of healthy pressure, this is another thing you said that's just like so juicy. Draw out your greatness. Draw the greatness out of the person through healthy amounts of pressure. And so, yeah, I'd love to open it up for questions. Everybody, if you have any questions, go ahead and type it. You know, when people are seeking like the outcome that they're wanting and a level of like, it seems like adaptability is a huge element of this. The ability to make decisions on the go, to maybe the path isn't exactly what you thought it was going to be, but to keep your eyes on the goal, but maybe you got or something of that nature. How important in your business, because like I'm very confident on certain areas of mind and communication and voice and yoga and things of that nature, and really using money as a tool and allowing money to be magnetized towards me frequently and effortlessly, naturally, and using it towards my ends. Like I want that to test who I actually am with the power with me. If I had the power of Iron Man, would I use it for good? Would I use it for evil? What would I do with the power? I want the power and I'll earn the power. And so how important has adaptability been on your journey? I said all that because I see you and your business and your mentality and your discipline, especially. I really admire your discipline. And how much did adaptability, do you see that as an integral variable for you and for the viewers and for myself? Do you see that maybe I need more adaptability? Or I'm just being like opening my heart here and being vulnerable. Like what do you see in me that needs to enrich? This is like a coaching session now. I didn't know this is going to be a coaching but I'm sure some other people are going to take benefit from it. I think you get the idea of the question. I'll hand it over.
Absolutely, man. Adaptability. I'm trying to remember that. I think it was like the Colosseum that they built over in Greece, Parthenon, right? That has all the pillars, right? I consider adaptability one of those pillars because as rapidly as time goes on, right? We go from like 1990 to 2000 to 2010, 2020. Things are changing at a more rapid pace. Therefore, our adaptability has to be quicker and faster. And one of the biggest things I can teach people in any business is, and we learn this a lot in sports, is you have to develop the ability to anticipate, right? And the high level athletes just do it naturally, right? Because they've been doing it for so long. So when I look at my business, let's say real estate, right? What can I anticipate? Well, there's a lot of factors I need to look at, and I need to be able to adapt. So if I anticipate, which we've seen, and I called 6 months ago, that the market was starting to shift from a crazy seller's market to a more normal market, right? I said, okay, I can see that now. What changes are going to have to be made? And I started looking at my business and saying, well, can I move money around, this and that? And I really started looking at it from the correct point of view to make those necessary adjustments to move me forward. Just like we're still doing the old school stuff in my real estate business, particularly. And at the same time, I realized, and I saw this years ago, back in end of 2013, going into 14, when I really started pushing social media, I said, people aren't going to adapt to this, but I'm going to be one of the first people to adjust to this. And now in 2017, 18, 19, it's all about video marketing and your brand. I was able to anticipate that early and get into that, we can say, get on that train and board it and take off and get such a head start over everybody else. So your ability to adapt, not only in the sense of anticipation, but also if you do get blindsided by something, is extremely important, man. And one of those ways I can say, not so much so in the blindsided aspect, but what we tend to do is we're creatures of habit, right? We tend to do things a certain way. And as time goes on, it gets a little bit more difficult for most people to make that switch because they're so stuck in their ways. Mm-hmm. And this is why I'm so fanatical about people tracking their numbers. And I know you being analytical, it's easier for you and it comes more naturally. But you can take all that tracking and measuring that you're doing, look at it, and now you can adapt by doing that. That's one of the tools of adaptation, is tracking and measuring. Now you know, and you can say, well, I put X amount of hours into this activity for 2 years, and my profitability or my income per hour of generating that stuff and that activity is $20 an hour. Yet for every hour I put in over here, I'm making $200 an hour. Okay, how can I look at this now? What adjustments need to be made? Now, is it a lack of skill, or is it my systems are lacking? What exactly is missing here? Or am I doing everything right? It's just in this moment, in this day and age, at this time, this source or this thing that I'm looking at isn't where I need to put most of my time because it's not bearing me the fruit that I want in return. So I can adjust it. And I do this in real estate all the time in regards to the type of lead sources that we're going after, right? The expired listing, people who could not sell with another realtor, the for sale by owner, who was actually the type of lead that we almost got in a fight with yesterday. And, you know, divorce and probate leads, you know, the notice of defaults, people who are going into foreclosure, you know, and we're tracking and measuring. And in real time, we can check and say, okay, per hour, you know, we're worth this much in this much in this. And now, because you track and measure, you can, from a position of power and choice and cause, make those changes. And it really puts you in a position where, you know, you can make some powerful changes, man, and be on, we can say, the side of making adaptation not only effective, but fast. And when you don't track and measure, it makes adaptation much more difficult and almost blind because you really don't know what the story is.
Yeah, totally. You know, the activity, focusing on the activity that's bringing fruit was a really, and I'm really curious because as I relate what you're doing to what I know, and especially where I feel most outcome independent. For example, I'm a yogi. I practice yoga. When I step on my yoga mat and I do my yoga, I'm totally independent of what comes out of it. But that was born of lots of practice and competence and a knowing that wherever it delivers me is going to be useful for me, that I'm going to get something out of this. And I just know. And so I'm curious, in the theme of outcome independence, how vital is competence? And is there really a rev up time? Is there a time that it takes in the pursuit of what you're doing to arrive at a place of outcome independence, or is it something that people can have from time zero?
Great question, man. In regards to competence, it takes a lot of time. You know, the formula that I tell people that is very simplistic and people can understand and run with it very quickly and easily is for you to get to competence, and other people label it as confidence. I think a reframe, and I think we heard this from, Mystery and Arash, change confidence to competence, and it makes it a lot easier for you to digest. There's a process of gathering knowledge, and really learning and studying and understanding the inner game aspect. But there's also the real life, real time experience of you now taking that knowledge and applying it and then receiving feedback, right? That, to me, and to many people that I learned from, is the road to get you to a place of actual and real competence of saying, okay, I'm confident doing this thing. I didn't just read about it. I didn't just learn about it or hear about it. I'm a practitioner in this. And I'll be a high-level practitioner because I put in my 10,000 hours, right? For the 10,000 hour rule. Now you can get to a position of actual competence, because how many people do we know, especially in the social dynamics world, that read and know everything and can spit off every line to you, but when you tell them to go approach, they can't do shit, right? It's the same thing, right? And it becomes like a bragging thing. Oh, I studied this person and this person. I've read 10,000 books. But yeah, motherfucker, what can you actually do with it? What does your life show from what you've read? Well, absolutely nothing. So you're in the same spot as anybody else. You just think that you're smart, right? You think that you're competent, but you're not really. And to answer the question about the process, at least for me, I believe that, of course, if you have the right mentors and coaches, you can really expedite that process at a very rapid rate. Again, assuming that person is willing to put themselves in that position of jumping out of the airplane, right? Are they willing to go out with us at night and approach and get feedback? Are they willing to get on the phone? Are they willing to go business to business? Are they willing to go door to door and really put in that work and make themselves? Because really what it boils down to is you need to step outside of your comfort zone, learn that whatever we can call it, that mysterious black hole or whatever we want to label it, right? You really need to dance in that and enjoy it, because it's in there that you change and you make these leaps and bounds of improvement. Because if we stay over here in our comfort zone and do what's easy, you're never going to, A, get any feedback from your coach or mentor because you're not in a position to get it. But two, you're not really pushing yourself and testing yourself. How do we know if we've reached the level of competence? Well, when I insert you, like the old video game, The Sims, I pick you up and I drop you into that situation where now you're head to head with that client or that woman where you put your skills to the test. Now, can you make it to the other side? If you do, then we applaud you and say, sir, you now have the level of competence that you desired. Or you can say, hey, I've made X amount of improvement, but I need to fine tune now the closing portion, or, Ella, last minute resistance, or whatever it is. And you can get that real time feedback from actual experience to know this is what I need to sharpen up. And when you combine powerful studying and being a powerful student with also being a high level practitioner, I think that's what ultimately leads you to that level of competence that we can say, okay, I have a real actual level of competence, to move me forward and now feel, we can say, like an expert in my field.
Yeah. And you answered a question I was going to ask anyway. It was like, how do I know? What was it I wrote? What's the true measure of competence? And you went ahead and you answered that. And I just love gleaning sentences. In my mind, I see myself as, I'll go ahead and reveal it here, an ancient Greek mythological character. His name was Imhotep. And Imhotep was the scribe of the gods. And when he heard what needed to be heard, he wrote it down so that the future thousands of generations after him could take. And this is me. This is a element of me. If I was a 5-sided polygon, that would be one side. And I'm a practitioner. I'm a high-level practitioner of visualization. I'm a high-level practitioner of sales. I'm a high-level practitioner of communication. And this sentence is very freeing, and I thank you for it. I know we got a couple questions. I had a poll that's actually, if you were here on Instagram, you could always join Zoom. In Zoom, I gave out a poll, and so we got some questions that came from that. One of these has to do with, do emotions play a role in your closing or your sales process? And everybody who replied to this answered there were 4 options. It was sometimes, I'm good once I'm in the zone. Yes, always emotions play a role. Or then the 4th option, which I'm surprised nobody answered, is what the hell are emotions? And so everybody answered, I'm good once I'm in the zone. And what processes do you use to get yourself in the zone in your sales or business processes? How would you answer that? Or emotions, do they play a role? For you, is the zone a real thing that you handle? Take it away.
I would have answered the yes with the exclamation point, because I know if the person sitting in front of me isn't at least pretty somewhat heavily invested in this transaction that we're about to, embark on, whether it's, again, a woman or a client, we know that, hey, if it's purely logical, that sale, they're always going to find a hole in it, right? And not only that, me, as I'm connecting with them, understanding their world, pacing their reality, right? As I'm describing things to them, as I'm taking them through stories, right, as part of my sales process, am I actually portraying the right emotions through it, or am I just going through the motions, right? And what I think would clear that up is when I'm in the zone, what I just described, I do naturally, we can say. But yes, there's always emotions involved. And I believe I learned this from, and this is a great way to summarize it, from Jordan Belfort. He said, you need to make an airtight, logical, and emotional case. When you can fuse those two together, then you're an extremely powerful salesperson, and they can't say no. And when I heard that, I was like, that totally makes sense. Airtight, logical, and airtight, emotional case.
Wow, that's a trip. I don't even know what that means. You might want to keep it for private training or your group or whatever, but maybe could you give me like an idea of what does airtight emotions mean in that context?
Well, if I can, let's say, zoom in on a sales situation for me, right? Let's say I'm with a buyer of a home. When we sign on that dotted line to, let's say, submit the offer and really get them to make that decision, I know that, yeah, on paper it makes sense, but also everything I've described to them in that moment and leading up to that moment of them signing, it makes sense, right? When we think about it, when they visualize the image of them moving into the home, of going through this process and me handing them the keys in 30 days, that mental visualization, that moment feels good to them, and they know, okay, this is the right thing to do. And then when they look on the paper, if we're looking logically now, it further solidifies that image, and now it just connects.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that cleared it up for me. Thank you. Yeah. Cool. So guys, we'll open it. We're going to wrap it up now. Bryan's time is very, very valuable. You should all be very appreciative, as I am extremely appreciative. We got a couple questions that I will offer from the audience. And
I want to say something.
Go ahead.
Come to the Zoom link, everybody.
Come to the Zoom link, everybody. This is where it's happening, everybody. So come to the Zoom link if you're on Instagram, and then I'll read off your question. Okay, so from Andreas. Seeing the bigger picture out, like you said, while holding a Mount Everest level goal, how detailed do you plan your steps to your success?
Very detailed, right? You want to be as detailed as possible. And at the same time, you also need to be, as we said earlier, you have to be adaptable enough that, and you have to also understand that things don't always go our way. We could have the perfect business plan, the perfect step-by-step process, but something outside of our control can happen. Outside factors can affect how that path is going to be. So maybe this path that we created to that Mount Everest is straight up. And then on the third step, a big boulder falls over the fourth step. Well, now we need to go around it. So you have to be adaptable enough to make the changes. However, the more detailed your process is and what it looks like, what your activities are, what your day is going to look like, the more on track you're going to stay, and the more you take your own thought process out of it. And what I mean by that is when we hit moments of not knowing what to do, or we hit moments of what most people classify as boredom, like, I don't know what to do right now. For most people, their mind goes negative and it starts looking for what's missing. And the more you're stuck in that mode and you're not productive and producing, you're going to get thrown off. And that's the number one thing I deal with people. When I boil it down to a one-on-one session or I have a conversation with them, it's they don't have enough stuff to do, whether it's studying, whether it's action. They have too much. I call it, boring time, right? I tell them, you're bored too much. And I think that's, I don't know, maybe it's associated with people thinking, oh, I have to take time off, right? It could be a deeper rooted issue, and I don't want to get into it. But basically, you don't have your schedule full enough. If you look at the millionaires and billionaires of this planet, their schedule is boom, 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 super effective. And somehow there's been this association to that as, oh, too busy or not having fun. And just, there's been this whole mental flip frame when it comes to that. And it's just, it blows my mind, because in one breath they say they want that plan to be successful, but then on the other hand, they're just so messed up in the head. And I never understood that, but I really think that's what it is, man. You just have to be efficient, have a schedule, and have your daily tasks outlined specifically.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that question. Were there things that you loved, hobbies that you enjoyed, or just activities that had to take a back seat, that they got exited from your life? Maybe you you don't do those things anymore in the last 3 or 4 years that you've been this tycoon venture. How much of what you enjoyed had to be eliminated from your day to fill it with the things that, brought home the bread?
Great question, man. What I realized when I started taking those things away is those activities that I took away, I never really enjoyed. They were just a time filler or something to keep me occupied, right? Like I used to be an avid gamer, right? I love playing the Xbox and the PlayStation and the computer games and all that shit. But I realized, man, my actual reality was lacking in that at that time. And I didn't have a worthwhile goal or result, or I wasn't crystal clear about what I wanted. So because I was, again, entering that field of what we call being bored, I was like, well, let's fill the time. And if you don't have something on your schedule, something else is going to fill that time. And more than likely, it's going to be something unproductive like that. So as I take a step back now and look, I say, well, I never really enjoyed that shit. I say that I did, but I didn't really enjoy it. It was just a time filler. But we fooled ourselves and said, oh, I love being a gamer. I'm a total gamer. When in reality, we didn't have anything to do and we just filled that time up. That's the way I see it now.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I want to end. I have one more kind of final follow-up question, but I'd love to give you an opportunity to offer your services to people. Is there something coming up in your reality, in your world, that the viewers, we got about 15 viewers total on all of the platforms right now. A bunch of people are going to see this afterwards on my YouTube and on my podcast. What should they know about how to get in touch with you and maybe what you could offer them?
Yeah. The one big thing I have coming up is our first members only event for Modern Success, which is February 2nd here in Los Angeles. Again, it's only for members only. So I recommend all of you get on Modern Success because I've already booked 4 guest speakers for the event. And I'm not going to reveal who they are, but I guarantee you when you go, you will be impressed. That's for sure.
That's amazing. So Modern Success, how can they find Modern Success? Go to Bryan Casella on Instagram.
Yeah, we also created a standalone link just to make it simple. Joinmodernsuccess.com.
Wow, super simple. Joinmodernsuccess.com. Okay, cool. Final question. It had to do with one of my poll questions and dealing with communication. How much of your communication would you say is calculated to get what you want, that you are methodical with it, like a mathematician almost, versus relying on instincts, using what you already know, maybe going on vibes, feelings, less calculated, more intuition kind of thing? Is this even part of how you think about communication, and how would you kind of describe your own?
I would even say at this point, Chris, to answer that succinctly, that even my instinctual communication is calculated. I remember hearing this from, I believe, Arash, and it sums this up great because I had words floating around, but he coined it very well. He said, every word that comes out of our mouth, every gesture that we make is to influence, right, and persuade everything. And when I heard that, I was like, man, that's so true because I never worded it that way, but everything I was doing was tactical, was for a reason. And at this point, even the instinct that comes up of what to say or the gesture is in itself a tool that I've learned or a skill that I've learned that is calculated and tactical as well. So I would say 100% is. And in the beginning, it took a little bit more work. But now it's so ingrained in me that even the instinct is tactically the right thing to do at that right time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Would you say you're being tactical right now on this broadcast?
Absolutely.
That's so fascinating. I would love to pick it up again. Maybe we could do this again like once a month or something like that if you're interested.
Sure, yeah.
I'll sell you on it. I'll bring you I'll work up my pitch and maybe I can schedule a meeting with you and give you a presentation on why we should do this. Thank you all. Thank you all the listeners for joining. Thank you for those who participated. Thanks, Bryan Casella, for joining us. That's themodernsuccess.com. Did I get that right?
Joinmodernsuccess.com.
Joinmodernsuccess.com. Everybody should be on this. And I'll see you next time.
Om.